reviewing the book, The Reformation, a handbook by the late T.M. Lindsay. Reformation, the handbook. So the book generally, it was written in 1882 as essentially a rough and ready historical overview, but with a theological insight for the church, for church members to understand what was taking place historically during the age of the Reformation. And T.M. Lindsay's argument is essentially getting it down to brass tacks. What was the Reformation? It was a revival of religion. He takes a positive view. He is at one point a profound historian. He's also very theologically rigorous and in tune with what the Bible teaches, the political constructions of the day, and the Reformation as it moved out from the hubs of Germany, Switzerland, and England. And that's really the first three subdivisions of his book. So that's the book. Generally, the question I will like to keep in front of us is it worth the price? Both the purchase price, which I think I got this for 15 or 20 bucks over a decade ago, and then is it worth the price in terms of your value investment of time and reading and study? I would say for this book, yes, and then some. In fact, just the fourth part of the book, it's subdivided into four parts with chapters intermixed there. The fourth part and then the chronological summary at the back is alone worth the purchase price of the book. In fact, the chronological summary is just an awesome thing where A Labor of Love by T.M. Lindsay, he basically goes from 1493 essentially to the early 1600s, and he sidelines over 2 pages. And I think there's 6 or 7 of these pages where essentially what you have is contemporary events, Lutheran camp, Reformed camp, revolutionary political camp, Roman Catholic camp, and then Protestant theology camp in a general way. You know, what was being written at large, Anabaptists and others will be lumped in there. But essentially for 7 twofold pages, he outlines the history. And it's just a very useful tool. It'd be awesome to have as a one-page poster going all the way down from 1490 to 1610 or so, getting the first and second generation of the Reformation there. But I would pay $5 for that, and then probably more if it was a full poster. So it is in essence a history book, but it's beneficial in that it blends deep theological insights with the Protestant church development post essentially Luther, although he gets into a little bit of the political social reality before that. He also does a very good job at understanding the political context of each region. He measures in the hub of the Reformation in Germany and out of Switzerland and out as far as France and Scotland, which Presbyterians, we would trace ourselves there. And then the Anglican movement situated in England. And then chapter 4 is devoted to principles. But he's good about encompassing world realities, the larger stage, the political realities, wars, circumstances, and so forth. And, you know, compared to other books that are going to give you a rough and ready overview and knowledge on the Reformation, this is a third of the size of a lot you're going to find out there. But in it being more condensed, I don't feel like it suffers for it. It's readable. He has profound insights, and it's essentially it's twice the value. You're going to pay less money for it, and you're going to get through it faster. And I think you're going to get better insights and are going to remember more from what he writes. So let me give you a bit of a taste of what you'll encounter. So like I said, I think it's worth the price of the book and your time investment and then some. And really just part 4 on the principles of the Reformation that begin around page 200 and something are worth the price of the book in my mind. It's profound insights and teaching. And to give you a taste of that, T.M. Lindsay subdivides the Reformation's foundation in terms of principles. So he'll say there were two basic principles undergirding what took place in the Reformation as a revival of religion. The formal principle was their doctrine of the Word of God, that it was the sole authority, that it was inspired, that it was the fountain of life by which God was going to revive and enliven this church from essentially the dead arm of the church they had cut themselves off from. So their formal principle was the Word of God. He would argue that their material principle was justification by faith alone. Well, so no surprise there. However, he gets into applications of that really he was it. There are parts of the book that feel like he wrote them at the time of the Reformation. He wrote in 1870s and 80s, I think, when he compiled his work, but he writes with an insight and an impression of somebody with deep historical roots who he could understand the people of the age. And so when he says it's a revival of religion, what he's getting at isn't so much they felt a deep sense of the need to recover the Word of God. Now that's there. Or that they all of a sudden woke up one day and had justification by faith just roaring like a flame in their hearts and minds. No, that came about through a revival of religion in terms of the Word of God and justification by faith. But the practical principle that would underline both of those is access to God. How do people gain access to God? And so amid the formal and the material principle, and he doesn't use this language, but you could say he is most profound in his insights on helping you glean the practical principle, which is under the Roman Catholic system, our access to God is burdened and limited and confused. And so in comes what justification by faith brings. Its chief application, the universal priesthood of all believers. Now that doesn't mean in the representative priesthood that we had under the Levites, or that the Roman Catholic system had concocted, this separate class of Christian, essentially in the priesthood, but ultimately the universal priesthood of God dismantles the Roman Catholic system of the priest in the day. That is to say, you have ready access to God now and immediately. You don't have to wait on the priest. You don't have to go to confession. You can go to God right now. And I'll read a line. This is on page 238 of my edition, just to whet your appetite to potentially purchasing this book. And I'll try and find it online and link it in the description. But to purchasing this book and benefiting from a study of church history. He writes this from T.M. Lindsay. The right of entrance into God's very presence, the Reformers believed, had been conferred by him on all his people. But the right of entrance, this is what is meant by priesthood. And a key principle of the Reformation is the priesthood of all believers. And this next line will give you his devotional quality. The right of every believing man and woman, whether lay or cleric, to go to God directly, with confession seeking pardon, with ignorance seeking enlightenment, with solitary loneliness seeking fellowship, with frailty and weakness seeking strength for daily holy living. Wow, that's good writing, that's good devotion, that's he's a biblical man. Whoever, I don't know if he wrote anything else, but if he did, I will buy it. So that's just to give you a taste on really what comes at the end, where he lays out the principles. So not even the meat of the book in terms of being a historical handbook, but I mean, you encounter that kind of devotional quality and insight throughout, but that part 4 is where I think he really shines as both a historian and a theologian. So the book is The Reformation, a Handbook by T.M. Lindsay, 1882. I think Spurgeon gave it a shout out back in the day. So even for our Baptist friends, you should like it. One of your own, one of your famous Hall of Faith, Spurgeon, recommended it there. So I hope that's helpful. I hope you go out and buy it. Thanks.